with news from here in Taiwan and around the world. Taiwan is preparing to block the Chinese social media app Red Note, or Xiaohongshu, citing serious security and scam concerns that could put users at risk. Alan Liu explains how the move could affect millions of people and why opposition parties are pushing back.
First government agencies and now the public. Officials in Taiwan have moved from banning civil servants from using Chinese social media platform Xiaohongshu to taking direct action against the platform itself. Citing cybersecurity risks and a surge in online scams, the Interior Ministry ordered internet providers to block connection to Xiaohongshu servers for a year.
如果你的平台在中华民国境内要运作，要让民众使用，那你就必须要接受中华民国的法律管辖，而且要回应我们对于在平台上面有各式各样违法违规的行为的一个改善。
In just the past year, authorities in Taiwan say the platform has been linked to more than 1,700 fraud cases, resulting in millions of dollars in losses. The ban will gradually affect the 3 million users in Taiwan. And when it does, they won't be able to open the app, cutting off access to all content. Experts say the restrictions will stop Xiaohongshu from collecting user data in Taiwan.
你如果打开的话，它不能截取你所输入的东西，也进一步不能去解析你所使用的内容。那对这个平台业者来讲，它就没有说。
But the main opposition Kuomintang is blasting the move, saying it goes against freedom of speech.
捍卫人权，保障言论自由，数位世界的数位人权与自由，这是我们的普世价值。
But some who use the app say it does at least need oversight.
政府应该先审查好，然后再决定说看要不要开放这个 app 进来台湾。
We all have a lot of different kind of alternatives like Instagram or like TikTok. So I think banning this app, maybe it's not really like a symbol like to deny the freedom of speech. Yeah.
While others say the new rules won't impact their lives.
就觉得停就停掉，反正我也没在用，就不是在我生活会遇到的范围。
Taiwanese government has made it clear that users won't be penalized for installing Xiaohongshu, but it has strongly urged people to stop using it and recommends removing the app. Officials say any lifting of the ban will depend on whether the platform is willing to comply with Taiwan's laws and implement corrective measures. Liang Lian and Ellen Lu for TaiwanPlus.
The U.S. has released its latest national security strategy, saying deterring a conflict over Taiwan is a priority. It says preserving the U.S.'s military superiority is needed to achieve that. The document noted increased focus on Taiwan for its critical role in semiconductors. It also says that the U.S. does not support unilateral changes to the cross-strait status quo. Instead, it calls for working with regional allies to ensure that the U.S. can always defend Taiwan. It's the first national security strategy document released since 2022. For more on what the new strategy could mean for U.S. engagement in the region, our reporter Larry Isiano spoke to Bryce Barrows, an associate fellow at the think tank GlobeSec.
What are your high-level thoughts on the new national security strategy? Do you think that this represents some sort of shift in U.S. policy towards Asia and the Indo-Pacific region?
Yes, I do think it's a bit of a high-level shift on U.S. policy in Asia broadly. I think specifically where the national security strategy mentions Taiwan, specifically under the Deterring Military Threats subsection, it really doesn't focus on ways that it partners with Taiwan in a military way other than wanting to ensure that Taiwan is important because of its semiconductor production, but also given its own geography across the so-called First Island chain. So I think that that's actually pretty significant in itself to mention that. I do think that it does allow for a lot of ambiguity about what U.S. actions would be for that, other than trying to deny China's ability to want to seize Taiwan or try to get a foothold on any of the islands in the First Island chain. So the way to sort of do that is to keep an eye on what's happening going forward related to bilateral exercises or multilateral exercises here in the Indo-Pacific. So if you continue to see those exercises and interactions sort of maintain their balance and ramp up, I think that's a lot more telling than some of the more ambiguous language that you have in the actual national security strategy unto itself.
A few months ago, in the lead up to APEC, there was some concern that Taiwan could be seen as some sort of political bargaining chip between Trump and China while he sought out some sort of trade deal. Do you think this strategy assuages those concerns or addresses those concerns?
I don't know if the strategy necessarily gets into that at all, right? And there's been a lot of omission within the strategy that talks about the nuts and bolts of how it will work with Taiwan. But I do think that some of the things that you're starting to see so far show that the Trump administration is not necessarily viewing Taiwan, or at least using it as a bargain chip.
How does this national security strategy differ from previous ones? This is the first in 3 years and the first in President Trump's second term.
I think the biggest difference, so if you're looking at this national security strategy versus ones that you've seen for previous, like the Biden administration, for example, where the Biden administration put a really strong advocacy on democracy, right? There's not a whole lot of mention of human rights, democracy, and whatnot in the context of this national security strategy. And within the context of China, right? So Hong Kong, Xinjiang, all those other, like transnational repression. So in that sense, at least on the Indo-Pacific policy related to China, it is a bit of a departure. However, I do think that there is a decent amount of stuff that provides a nod to wanting to work with allies and partners, which issues has the administration chosen to speak up about, done actions against, like, for example, sanctions or military exercises or things along those lines. I think that that's a key thing to sort of keep an eye out for when thinking about the actual implementation of this national security strategy versus previous ones.
That was Bryce Barros, an associate fellow at GlobeSec. A former member of the European Parliament, Reinhard Bütikofer, has warned that a crisis in the Taiwan Strait would be a global concern.
A Taiwan emergency, the Japanese Prime Minister said, would amount to a Japan emergency. I think more even is true. A Taiwan emergency would amount to an international emergency.
Bütikofer, who now co-chairs the German-Taiwanese dialogue platform, made the comments at a conference in Berlin. He said a Taiwan emergency could have the biggest economic fallout since World War II, adding that Taiwan will become a focus of global geopolitics. And he pledged continued exchanges between his country and Taiwan to deepen mutual understanding. The U.S. Congress and the Trump administration are locking horns over whether to keep restrictions on chip exports to China. As Chris Gorin reports, divisions are forming between the president, chip companies, and even some in Trump's own party.
A legislative tug-of-war over selling U.S. chips in China. Earlier this week, the White House reportedly pressured Congress to kill a measure tightening chip export restrictions. But later, a bipartisan group of senators struck back, introducing the Safe Chips Act. Republican co-sponsor Pete Ricketts says the goal of this bill is to lock current restrictions in place.
That's why Senator Coons and I plan to introduce the Safe Chips Act. This legislation would put in statute the Trump administration's current red lines on what AI chips are allowed to be sold to Communist China for 30 months to preserve our edge.
Sponsors say these chips could help China build up its military. And while Republicans say the bill supports Trump's agenda, there's a catch. The bill prohibits any exceptions, stripping the president of the power to override the bans by granting licenses. That could limit Trump's options as he negotiates a larger trade deal with China. NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang, who reports say urged Trump to kill the first bill, says export controls are self-defeating and will only help China take more of the global market faster.
They're going to go build their own complete stack. Once they build that entire complete stack, they'll export it as quickly as you could imagine. And this is the world what we will find someday if we don't activate.
We'll be buyers, not sellers.
That's right.
But even if Washington says yes to China sales, Beijing might still say no. Regulators there are said to be pushing tech giants to buy AI chips from local firms like Huawei instead of NVIDIA or AMD. While the bill makes its way through Congress, some companies are moving ahead. AMD CEO Lisa Su confirmed Thursday she has obtained export licenses to ship some of its AI chips and is ready to pay Trump's 15% tax on China sales. So the stakes in the global AI race are high. and the debate around the Safe Chips Act shows there are divisions even within President Trump's own party. Now, whether the bill makes it through Congress and the president's desk is another matter. Patrick Chun and Chris Gorin for TaiwanPlus.
Dolphin performances in Taiwan will stop next year, but releasing captive dolphins into the wild is nearly impossible. So what becomes of them and their trainers? TaiwanPlus is back for part 2 of this special report.
In 2026, Taiwan will join a growing list of countries, including Mexico, Costa Rica, and Chile, to ban dolphin shows. But while the performances may end, the dolphins at the Far Glory Ocean Park will remain in captivity.
第一个就是它的生命年龄，被圈养的这个鲸豚，它个体它的生命年龄已经是比较大的了，那它很可能在这部分的野放的可能性就会比较低。那再来另外一个条件就是说，它被圈养的时间长跟短。对，如果它圈养的时间已经很长，可能10年、20年，那这个相较起来的话，它可能已经形成了一种惯性。那这种惯性就是它可能失去了一些能力，包括像是去捕捉鱼的能力。
In most cases, reintegrating captive animals into the wild is very costly and very difficult. While some countries like Iceland have had success using large pens set up at sea, Taiwan's geography and climate make this hard.
它最主要就是台风的风险，因为台湾就在一个就是多台风的地方。那这些动物它如果被固定在一个范围内，但是这个范围内可以做的保护的措施又不够多，但台风来的时候，那个浪的影响很可能反而会让这些动物变得是很动荡、很受伤。那很有可能它就会在里面不小心的因为浪来了，然后撞击到礁岩还是怎么样的状态下受伤。
However, there could still be other options for the future of these dolphins.
That doesn't mean they can't be sent to a sanctuary somewhere else. Okay, they came from somewhere. Most of the animals in Taiwan aren't necessarily from Taiwanese waters, right? Somebody sent them there. It can be done in reverse, if you will. You can send them to a sanctuary that's been established somewhere else that is safe and protected. I'm not saying that's been done yet. We are still working on the concept for whales and dolphins. It's complex.
With no real possibility of release and the show's ending, Tien and his team will see their official titles changed from trainers to caregivers in 2026. The training they used to use to amuse audiences will be turned to day-to-day care for the animals.
For decades, signals like these have been used to ask dolphins to perform tricks, and sometimes they can also be used during health checks. For example, by doing this, I can ask a dolphin to open its mouth.
Tricks like that help caretakers check the dolphin's health. And for Tien, caring for the animals is more than a job.
因为它的一整天就是必须要靠我去帮它维持它的一些健康状态。对，所以有像我自己照顾的海豚，它其实是一开始非常害羞的动物。那跟它照顾了这么久之后，它慢慢的愿意接近我。我觉得这是一种互相信任的一个过程啊。我觉得我们之间更像是一个合作很久的伙伴的感觉。
With the special bond with the dolphins, Tien says his responsibilities won't change, even after the performances end. He will continue to work with and care for the animals, and welcome not only the final curtain fall on dolphin shows, but also Taiwan's evolving approach to animal welfare. For Wong, Howard Zhang, Bryn Thomas, and Sandy Chi for TaiwanPlus.
You can watch the full version of that report on the TaiwanPlus website and YouTube. Thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. You can visit the TaiwanPlus website or follow our social media for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Finally, we go to Rio de Janeiro to meet a Santa Claus who trades his reindeer for a jet ski, bringing gifts to children with disabilities. I'm Tiffany Wong. Take care and see you next time.
For more news from Taiwan, Japan, and around the world, download the TaiwanPlus app and follow us on social media.